This is a screencast how to explain the significant events in a text. Now, we first read the story about the farmer who needed to give a tour to some people on his farm. So that was the problem story. His response, he didn't mind doing it. Then the action was he gave them a tour, and then the outcome, it started to rain. First one we did. Then we unpacked, but we're going to unpack it a bit more. But I'm going to go through this one we read, which was this one here. And this was about Moana's mum getting sick and taken away. So what we've done here is we're looking to explain the problem. So here's the problem here. We're looking to explain it. So when we explain something, we need to do the cause first. So what were the causes of the problem? And we identified that up over here that she's sick. Say she is because it says she's sick in the text. She's always lying in bed, and the girl described that in the text. And the fact that she has to be covered up in the sun is an issue. So that's part of the reasons. Part of the reason what has caused this problem. Now, when we do explain something, not only do we have to explain the cause, but we also have to talk about the possible effects of the problem. So if we move over here, here are the effects. And the first one we see, Grandma looks after the family. And that's because we've identified that because it's what Grandma says in the text. Dad does all the work, as Mum can't do the work. Now these are good answers because we've identified an effect and we've said why it's an effect. Same with the causes, we've got to say why it's a cause. Down here, Moana doesn't like to talk about Mum, down here, and she's sad that her mum's sick. And furthermore, down here, Moana's upset at her friends and Grandma because they didn't stop her from being taken away. So, the key thing being is when we explain something, when we explain the significant events in a text, we need to look at what the cause of we need to identify the causes and explain why they're a possible cause. And the second thing is identify the effects and the possible effects. 4 main things. So when we explain the significant events in a text, we need to do 4 things. First one being that we need to identify the possible causes. Second one being identify possible effects. Then the second bit, explain why is a possible cause, and then explain why it's a possible effect. So let's take an example. Now in this text here, Dear Charlie, which you'll get to read, it's about a soldier in World War I, and he's in a trench and there's a gas attack. The problem in the story is the gas attack. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the causes and effects of that problem. So just here in front of you there's a cause and effect map. So if we look at this closely, let's look at just the possible causes. So we came up with, see if English is still there, is one of the reasons that there was the cause of that, because the Germans were doing the bombing. That was because that's what I would do if I was in the situation. The war was a big reason. If there's no war, there wouldn't have been no gas attack. And it was also effective. Being able to shoot a canister of gas into the enemy trench was a very good way of being able to really weaken your enemy. So those are good answers, 3 good answers there, because on each occasion they have identified a possible cause and explained why it's a possible cause. That's a really important part, explaining why it's a possible cause. Then over this side, we ran out of time for this, but these were the possible effects. One of which it refers to is there was lots of dead soldiers. They inhaled the gas and they died. It was poisonous gas, and it says in the letter about that. Charlie became scared because he thought he was going to die, and he actually lost faith that he was going to survive. He was going to see the war alive, that type of thing. So then again, this is really good because they've shown possible effects, identified possible effects, and said why it's a possible effect.